Hey gang, so today I want to talk to you about troubleshooting the C5 seats. So currently in my C5, which is a 2000, the seats don't work and I don't know why, right? So I started going down the road of doing a little bit of research like we always do. And I came across a couple of documents that I thought would be helpful to share with you. So if you're on the Corvette forums, there's a post, and I'll leave it in the link if I can find it again. And it's the Accessory and Equipment Power Seat Service Manual. And this is a step-by-step procedure on how to troubleshoot your seats if you have a scanner. Now, most do-it-yourselfers and weekend warriors like myself, we don't have a scanner. So this big manual here that I got, and don't mind the fancy clip, is almost kind of useless, but there is some useful information here. So I would advise, take a moment, just scan through it and read through it. Now, that being said, there's also a wiring diagram schematic, and that's what I want to talk about today real quick, because I was able to find the issue with my seat relatively quickly once I understood what I was looking at in the wiring diagram. Now, I do have an electronics background, although I haven't really touched electronics in over 20 years. It does help because reading the wiring diagrams, if you don't know what you're looking at, you're not going to understand what the symbols mean. So, therefore, I'd like to go through it with you. And I will show you how I troubleshot the seats that I can now have working, which I originally thought I was going to have to toss out into the trash and get new seats, which I really didn't want to do because I'm not prepared for new seats yet. But anyway, let's get to it and I'll show you what's going on. I'll set you guys down here. I'm going to put this light on here so you guys can see. Okay. So this is the wiring diagram. And in my case, it's the wiring diagram with power seat schematic, power, ground, and seat. What does it say? It's upside down. Controls. Yeah, this is the one. So power seat schematic, power, ground, and seat controls, driver's side. There's also another one that talks about whether or not you have the telescopic steering wheel, which I do have in this car. But anyway, what I want to talk about here is, and I've highlighted them. As you can see, if you look at this diagram, you have the main connector, and it's important to know that the main connector, that's a fuse, right? So you should have some voltage. You should have 12 volts coming out of this connector, and it's orange. ORN is orange. And then there's another connector, which is also orange, which looks like that. Is that fused? Take my glasses off because now I can't see shit. Yeah. That looks like it might be some sort of switch. Okay, so if you follow that down and around, and you follow this guy, this is a jump. All right, it ties into this motor because there's the little dot there. It jumps over this wire. There's no connection. The dot here is a connection, so there's a connection to the motor. So basically what this is doing is that orange connector is providing power to each of these motors, right? Each location where there's a dot. I want to focus on the front, and I want to focus on moving the seat forward and back. That was my initial thought process. So in doing this, I follow the orange wire to see, okay, I've got an orange wire, as well as, that's the motor right there, that symbol there, that's the motor. And then this is the switch. You know what, I'm going to do this a different way so you guys have a better view of this. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So these up here, these are your buttons on your seat. And then we're going to follow this button down to this brown wire, which leads to the motor. And then out of this motor, this should lead down and around to the orange wire, right? But if you look at the switch, so what we want to do here is, sorry about the camera angle, because I'm no professional here at YouTubing videos. What we want to do here is we want to look for this light green. And if you follow this light green up, that's the terminal for the switch. And then you have this other one here, which I've highlighted this dot. And if you follow this along, notice how it makes these connections, these dots. And if you follow it up and along, where is it? There we go. You follow it up along, that's the symbol for a ground. So that means it's making metal contact somewhere on the chassis, and which also leads to the negative battery terminal. So that's the ground, and that's gray with black. So in this case, what I want to do is I need to do two things. One, we need to look for power at the main connector, and I'll show you how to do that, and which should be an orange wire. And then we're going to look for ground at the connector, and we're going to test and see if we can short those connectors together and see if we can bypass. Here's the key. We're going to bypass the relay under the seat, and this is how we do it. So let me gather some things because I realized that I missed the jumper that I was using. So let me go get that and I'll show you how we do this. Okay, gang, we're back. All right, so what we're looking at, in this case, the controls are broken on this car, so we need to get a new bezel. So we'll get that in a moment. I'm not gonna go through the process of how to disconnect it. That's a whole nother video. Okay. So down in here, you have your connectors. And we're focusing, as I mentioned earlier, on the orange wire. Now, what I've done is I have a test light, and the test light is to ground. So that means that when I apply power here, or when I apply the probe to a power source, it should light up. So just to confirm. Okay, so as you can see, the orange wire here out of the main connector, what does that tell us? It tells us that obviously we're getting power to the seat and that we're getting power from the fuse box. So that means that this wire harness coming from the vehicle is good at the moment. We're getting power. So it's not a fuse issue. Remember when I talked about earlier about that connector and that fuse, right? So this is upstream from this connector, meaning it's probably somewhere in the computer, in the PCM. So that fuse is good. And along this orange wire, which makes that connection to this connector, we're showing voltage. All right, so we got voltage. So that checks out good. Then what you can do is you can check for ground. And how do you check for ground? Well, there's a couple ways you can do it, but I'm going to use a voltmeter. Here's my voltmeter. And I'm going to check for what's known as continuity. Basically what that means is that I'm going to test to make certain that the circuit is complete from start to finish. It's a continuous circuit, right? So here's my voltmeter. I'm going to set this at ohms, which means that that one is out and that is in. So that's the ohm symbol for resistance. I don't have to worry about DC voltage because we're not testing for voltage. And I have this button over here, which means testing for continuity. And then I push it again, and now this will give me a tone. So if I were to tone out my two leads, You hear that? It beeps. So now what I'm going to do is to test continuity for ground. I take my negative lead to a ground. And then I'm going, well, actually, you know what? Let me do this. Let me put the positive lead in this black, which is the negative. And then as soon as I touch a bolt, I'm trying to go over the camera here. As soon as I go over a bolt, I should have continuity here. You guys can't really see that very well, can you? Is black not ground? Oh, it was black and gray. Sorry, my mistake. Well, I don't really have a black and gray. We'll just have black. Okay. It's making contact, but it's not very good. You hear the beep? There it is. It is black. I thought it was black. I thought I was going crazy here for a minute. So it leads me to tell me, the inconsistent beeps is telling me there's a connection problem here. So that'll be a first order of business. There is a little bit of corrosion in there. But anyway, the point is, we're going to look at that in a moment. You have voltage on orange. You've got ground on black. So with the voltmeter, you can determine that. So now we know we have power. Where I want to focus for this video is how can we bypass the relay and test the operation. And we do that, again, remember, we have this is the control module right on the side of the seat, and these are the buttons. So we're going to look at the brown, because it's the switch, and then also the gray. Now what we can do here is we're going to find the ground that's on the connector on the side of the seat, and then we're going to jump that terminal, the ground, from either the brown or the gray, and see if the motor moves. And if it does, then we know at least the circuitry is good. The motors are good, and the relay is good. The manual that I spoke about earlier takes you through the entire process as well, but it's more technical, and you need the scanner to do it. We're going to do this the old-fashioned way. So I pulled the connector. Can you guys see that? Here's the connector. And what I've used here is a jumper. It's a paper clip. And one thing you guys can do is to find the ground. And in this case, the ground, as I pointed out earlier, was gray and black. And that's in the center of the pin. Or sorry, the center pin in the connector. So you can fit your jumper right in the center there. The paper clip works very well for this. And then you can use green or blue, I believe. Brown. I think it's brown. So we're going to jump the ground to brown and see if we have any movement. We have nothing there. I know I have a connection issue here because I've already troubleshot it. So let's take that out. All right, so nothing happens. So then we could try the blue. And nothing happens. So basically what you're doing by jumping it, you're closing the circuit, you're closing the switch. It's like turning the switch to the left, turning the switch to the right. That's basically what we're doing here in this switch, in this connector. But I know it's not working because it was working earlier, and I want to point something out to you later. So there's something in here. Go back here. I don't think I need the key on for this. I hope I have enough juice in the battery. Okay, we're getting power there. Where's my jumper? Each one of these terminals does something different. For example, once I get it working, you jump the terminal, it'll move the seat forward, it'll move the seat back, it'll move the front up, the front back. So, and then there's also a sensor in here. But this is basically a good way of determining, hey, is this seat receiving power? And as you can see, it's not, because I know there's a bad connection in here, which I'm going to show you later. It could be, let me see, it could be that my battery is dead. Yeah, let me jump the battery. I think that's part of the problem. The battery is shot, and not ready to replace the battery just yet. Come on. There you go. All right, so that was up. Did you see that? I don't want to go up, but put that back into the ground. Okay, so watch. So now that we got some juice going here, so we're in ground. See that? There you go. Now I move the seat back. If I flip this around, it should go forward. And then this is down. Okay. You get the idea, right? So by learning to use the schematic and learning which wires to test with, you can utilize the jumper and test the switch and bypass the relay. As long as you got power coming into the connector, which was very important, because if you don't have power coming into the connector, obviously nothing is going to work. But one thing that I did want to point out to you, that now that I have this working, and also I can put my switch back together and I would have full functionality. I'll do that later. Once I put that back on, I'll have full functionality. But what I'd like to point out to you is I know there's a bad connector in here because there was some water intrusion in the vehicle. And that's probably what happened to the seats, and they started to get corroded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this connector apart. Here, and you can see there's a little bit of corrosion, just a little bit, barely see it. The same thing with this one here. There's a little bit of corrosion there. It's not really a good connection, and I think that's where the problem is. And if you look in here, I don't know if you can see that, but that doesn't look very good as either. They're not pretty. So and the reason why I know that these aren't working is because when I was testing this earlier, the connection stopped and it died on me. And I'm like, oh, what happened? And it turned out that once I moved the wire, then the connection was made. So there's obviously a connection issue here. So it's either one of two things. Either there's a poor connection in the terminal, or there's a slight break in the wire. So I'm like, well, let's take the easier approach. Let's clean the terminals first before we go ahead and cut wires and go get a new wire harness. So we'll just use some, this is electronic cleaner. It's perfect for this purpose. Over at Harbor Freight, it's only a few dollars. And it'll dries pretty quick. The alternative for using this cleaner is you can use baking soda. Baking soda will dissolve corrosion. If you ever use that on a battery, I'm pretty sure that works. So, but I wanted to try this and see how well this worked. I may want to clean those terminals a little better. Let me see if I can find my wire brush. So I bought these brushes, detailing kit on Amazon, and it came with these brushes here. So let's see if I mean, I can't get inside the terminal without taking the connector apart, which I don't really feel like doing. Oh, that's not good. We got power in there. I probably should pull the fuse on this. All right, you know what? All right, I can't clean that then the way I want to without pulling the fuse or pulling the battery, and I don't feel like doing either one of them because I'm not sure which fuse it is in the box, and I'm a little lazy right now because I want to do something else. But anyway, if you can, let's just see if this works. ideally, we should be tucking those wires underneath so they're secure and out of the way. Put this control module in. I'm going to order a new one, a new bezel. It's another thing that we've confirmed is that the control module or the control buttons are functioning. Yeah, see, we got a connection issue. Well, you guys get the idea, right? So, a little troubleshooting. Still got power. See, now it works. So there's a bad wire in here somewhere. Or it's just a bad connection. Is it ground or is it power? Yeah, she stopped. Yeah. Yeah, that wire is bad. It's the power wire. So anyway, we'll continue to work on this, and well, there you have it. That's some quick and easy steps or tips that almost anyone can do. You know, I could probably use, there's my jumper wire. There's a special tool for removing pins. I don't have it. You can get it on Amazon, but maybe this will help. It doesn't look bad, so if anything, it's either there's a break in this wire or it's just it's probably a bad connection here because let me get a screwdriver and see if I can scrape that clean. So what I have learned And I'm no expert, but I know how to read. These Corvettes have a lot of grounding issues. I can't say that I've experienced a ground issue yet, but there is one project that I need to tackle that I think is a ground issue, but that's not today. Well, you guys get the idea. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Subscribe, it's my new channel. Don't forget to like it. And I hope this was helpful to you guys out there, that maybe you can get your seats working and do it yourself in your driveway or your garage rather than having to pay a mechanic, because there's a lot of mechanics that don't understand wiring. See? And it's just basic troubleshooting, but you need to know where to start. Yeah, we're gonna have to do something with that wire. All right, so you didn't see it because I knocked the camera over. But anyway, that concludes some basic troubleshooting tips and some of the wiring that I have learned about. So in this case, we definitely have a wiring problem. You saw that. At least I was trying to demonstrate that there's a problem with the power wire on that connector, and that's the orange wire. I may have to repin it or cut the wire entirely and grab a wire harness out of a junkyard or something and then rewire the whole thing. But at least I know where the problem is, so I can position the wiring in such a way that right now I don't have to worry about it. I just get it working and put it on the to-do list of items to purchase. So I hope this was helpful to you. I hope you learned something about wiring. Share and like, because it's free. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel as we progress in the C5 Corvette project that we have here, bringing this baby back to life. Well, she's already alive, but because she does run. It does need a new transmission. But anyway, follow along and let's see how this baby cleans up and goes. So thanks for watching. Take care, guys.